Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo Noir in the Midwest, and we got Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a Wednesday slate here. Lots of day games. We are going to focus on those night games and evening time games, as we are wont to do, so we can make sure we get these videos out to you guys in time. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this MLB regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Have plenty of great written content, video content as well, all summer long as we head into this fall. Also want you to use that great odds checker tool that we have, so you can make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability there on thelines.com. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as kicking things off here with the evening time game. So the first one we have at 4:05 p.m. on the West Coast, 7:05 Eastern. Tampa Bay and Corey Kluber are in New York taking on Domingo Germán and those Yankees minus 135 in New York, a game we will touch on here. The Red Sox and Rich Hill are in Pittsburgh taking on Roansy Contreras, minus 155 for those Sox on the road. Daniel Norris and the Tigers are in Cleveland taking on Cal Quantrill and the Guardians, minus 210 for the Guardians at home there. Scherzer and the Mets in a good series here against Jake Odorizzi and the Braves, minus 150 for those Mets on the road with Scherzer on the mound, a game we will talk about as well. Germán Marquez and the Rockies are in St. Louis taking on Jordan Montgomery and the Cardinals, minus 200 for St. Louis at home. Oakland and Adam Euler, I always say that Euler, are on the road there against Texas. Cole Reagans and the Rangers are minus 155 at home. Tony Gonsolin and the Dodgers are in Milwaukee taking on Eric Lauer and those Brewers, minus 175 for the Dodgers on the road. Framber Valdez and the Stros are in Chicago taking on Michael Kopech and the White Sox, minus 145 for the visiting Astros, a game we will touch upon as well. And finishing things off here, this Diamondbacks matchup against the Giants, we've got Zach Davies and Carlos Rodon at home, minus 215 for Carlos Rodon and those Giants at home. So let's kick things off with my Metropolitans taking on those Bravos and Mo's favorite team there. We've got a total of 7.5 there. Pretty good pitching matchup. Definitely a little bit of an edge there for those Metropolitans. But kick us off, Mo, and what you're looking at in this Mets game.
Well, Nate's the one excited about the Mets. I think this is a pretty fair line. I'm not really seeing any value on the Mets. I do see that Scherzer, obviously his one weakness over the years has somewhat been lefties. That's the only way teams have really consistently gone to him. His K minus BB percent, it goes down 12% when he faces lefties, which is pretty massive. I mean, it's going from an elite number to like average. And his WOBA, the same thing, 60-point split. So when I see only three projected lefties in the Braves lineup, and one of those is Robbie Grossman, who's quite a bit better when he bats right-handed. That makes me a little nervous for them for sure. Obviously hoping the Braves can complete the sweep here. I'm actually not sure if there's one more game tomorrow. I haven't looked. But, yeah, they are on a roll against the Mets right now. But this matchup looks just like whatever for me. The Mets, interestingly, something to look for tonight. They are calling up top prospect Brett Beatty, I think is his name. 116 WRC plus. He looks like a pretty good one. Odorizzi, he's got a little bit of a reverse split over his career. So even though the Mets are loading up with lefties today, I'm actually not sure if that's sharp. Pretty large sample there. Obviously, Odorizzi's been around for years. His main skill is kind of that he induces a lot of pop-ups, but the Mets don't pop up hardly at all. They're bottom 5 in pop-ups, I believe, and they actually hit the ball on the ground quite a bit, which is good for them in this matchup. But I still think just because the Braves maybe have a better lineup than the Mets, and Odorizzi's still a decent pitcher, I have him like slightly below average. I just don't think the Mets should be like huge favorites or anything here. I was actually wondering about under 7.5, maybe just because that Scherzer has a pretty good matchup, and maybe a little sneaky reverse split there for Odorizzi.
Yeah, I like the underplay, mostly because I like Scherzer to give up one earned run or so, because he's like you mentioned, yeah, if there's not dangerous lefties in the lineup here, Matt Olson hasn't really been hot for a while now. Robbie Grossman not particularly good. Ozzy Alba is still out injured. I mean, Scherzer can dominate, and he's dominated in 2 starts against Atlanta, 20 Ks, 1 earned since he came off the IL. He has a 1.23 ERA. And this is the role he relishes, right? The role of stopper after the Mets got stomped, then lost 5-0, and now it's his turn to go out there, set the tone. You mentioned, bringing up the big prospect. It's a big game for the Mets in terms of holding off these Braves, and I don't think you would want any other guy on the mound for it. So Odorizzi, like you said, he's fine. He's decent, but has those questionable reverse platoon splits, particularly at home. I mean, he's thrived off giving up limited hard contact this year, despite that low ground ball rate, low swinging strike rate. But at home against righties, 30% line drive rate and a 35% hard contact rate. And like you said, the Mets aren't really popping up. They do still have plenty of dangerous righties in there, even if they're going to platoon a little bit here. And Odorizzi just had a 420 BABIP against the frickin' Marlins and gave up 8 hits. Indicates he's not necessarily getting the contact he needs. And I think the Mets support Scherzer enough here to get the win. I'm not necessarily predicting a slugfest in any ways or a blowout. So under and the Mets, maybe a good correlation there, since I think Scherzer will pitch a gem.
Yeah, no, I'm here for all of that. I think what's interesting is I'm going to move us on to a game here that's also got the other New York team and that Rays matchup against the Yankees. Corey Kluber and Domingo Germán. Interesting because this is a game, as we transition to this one from the other game, where I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago we're talking about some appointment television with this pitching matchup. And now I think we're looking at a guy who's I still believe in Corey Kluber enough. He's proven himself enough so far in a decent sample size this year for Tampa to be considered a solid starter. Germán has been struggling for sure. I also look a little bit at how the Yankees, they were struggling to score a bit of runs, but nowhere near what Tampa Bay is. I do think that we have the opportunity for maybe a bit of an over at 8.5 in this one. But kick us off, Nate. I know we've got plus 126 on the money line there for the Rays on the road. As I mentioned, a total of about 8 runs, depending where you look at it. So where do you start off here with this matchup against Kluber and Germán?
Definitely not an over with the way these offenses have been going. But the thing is, Tampa's used to playing low scoring games and getting no offensive production, and the Yankees have just been awful lately. As we know, they've lost 11 of their last 13, including the 2 to start this series. They have the second worst weighted runs created plus in the last 14 days. In the last 7 days, that's 44 of a weighted run created plus. That's just abysmal. They have 1 run in their last 3 games since they lost DJ LeMahieu. They already don't have Matt Carpenter. They have no table setters right now. It's just a pretty bad lineup, and Kluber, a veteran that at least can use his mind to navigate this lineup pretty well. It's his former team, so we saw him pitch pretty well twice against the Yankees this season. He's still limiting hard contact. Sierra's better than his ERA. And the bullpen gap is really the biggest thing here. If you look at 2 guys in Germán and Kluber, we're probably only going 5 innings at the best. I know Tampa's bullpen's been a little bit more gassed lately because they've been performing so well. In the last 14 days, 2.5 ERA. Their K per 9 ratio up at 10.3 as a pen, and the second best K minus BB babies in the last 14 days. While the Yankees have the second worst K minus BB, just 9% in that span. So everything that the Yankees have been leaning on in the first half seems to be falling apart on them a little bit. And I think the Rays are the type of organization that can capitalize on these type of things. And like I said, if it's a 3-2, 4-3 game, I'm leaning towards Tampa Bay because that's their style of baseball.
I would say the over is a little bit interesting here, actually. I'm with Josh on that one. Just 2 pitchers that I just think or whatever at best, probably. Kluber's been fine. He's actually been his fielding independent stuff and his peripherals are telling me that he's better than his actual numbers. But I always just think some of these bad fastball guys are gonna underperform that. I also think he's going to get pushed hard. I think that's what kind of makes me lean toward the over here is even if he's in trouble, I don't think the Rays are going to be as quick to go to their bullpen as usual because they've been dipping pretty heavy into the bullpen the past couple of games. And speaking of bullpens, the Yankees, like you were saying, their bullpen is not nearly as scary as it used to be right now. Clay Holmes is injured. It sounds like he's going to go on the IL, so I don't think we're going to see him. And then obviously Michael King's out for the year. Those guys did a lot of heavy lifting for this bullpen. And Domingo Germán is just pretty bad now. He used to be like pretty solid, but 25.4% called strike plus whiff, 4.78 Sierra. I think he's a well below average pitcher at this point. Ray's performing well against his top offering, the curveball. They're seventh best against the curveball. He's throwing that a lot, like 35%. It's really shocking to see the Yankees, like their recent splits, like you said, 104 WRC plus, even if you go back past 30 days. But there's still plenty of talent in this lineup, so I think we could see some runs here.
Thank you, Mo. I would concur with that, but we will definitely see on this one. I'm not feeling the most confident, but I am fading both these guys a little bit more than I think the public is. Definitely, as you mentioned, Domingo Germán in this one. But let's go to another game where I'm actually potentially leaning under in our final matchup here. But I'll let you guys tell me what you think about the Astros and White Sox. I think we've got a matchup here of a couple guys pitching super well right now. Framber Valdez really all season has been pitching super well, keeping the ball low, getting those ground balls, no home runs. Really, I believe he has the lowest home run rate in the majors right now of anybody who has enough innings pitched. But Kopech also coming off pretty much his best start probably ever, 11 Ks in 6 innings of no hit ball. So both of them coming in pretty hot right now. The Astros bullpen has blown a couple of games actually in this series already. That I know that they're looking to avoid the sweep are the Stros. So I'm not sure how you feel, if you feel comfortable still, as they are one of the best. So it's been a bit surprising. So either way, Mo, tell us what you think about this one. The Stros and the White Sox, like I said, total about 8 here, with the Astros being favored pretty nicely here.
Yeah, I would say not shocking that their bullpen's regressing a little bit. I think they're like fine, but I wouldn't put them in the top 5 for sure. I do like the Astros again here. I'm seeing as low as a minus 141 right now. I think that's good enough for a play. It's not like a spot I'm thrilled about or I think is a large edge. Not a lot of exciting bets on the board today, to be honest. I'm still wondering whether Luis Robert is going to play. I know that the White Sox have a tremendous batting line against lefties again this year, but Robert is a huge part of that. 189 WRC plus for his career with the platoon advantage. Tim Anderson, same type of split. I mean, not as big, but 135, still really, really strong against lefties. We know he's out. I'm guessing even if Robert plays, I don't think he's going to be 100% just because of the nature of the injury. I'm seeing it's a wrist injury. A lot of guys struggle to get their power back, coming back too early from wrist injuries. So I don't think the White Sox lineup is as scary as the numbers would tell you, even if they get Robert back. And it's some ways it's not the best matchup for them. Like, they are very grounder heavy. They are 4th most grounders in the league. And we know what Framber does, burning all the worms, 67% grounders. I just think it's a pretty big gap, honestly, between these pitchers. I have Framber low 3s ERA, and Kopech, I think he's like low 4s. So it is about a run of difference from these guys. Kopech's Sierra is 4.62. I think he doesn't match up that well here either. 60% fastballs, he's actually a little over 60%, which is more heavy than you're usually seeing from a starter. And the Astros, very, very good against the 4-seamer, second in MLB. So I think it's playable, minus 145 or better. So I put a little on Astros last night.
Yeah, and I mean, is Lightning going to strike 3 times in a row here with a Yoan Moncada late inning miracle? That's what the White Sox needed. I mean, there's regression, and then there's just totally blowing the game, and that's what the Astros bullpen has done now twice in a row as we've picked them. At least I think we had expectations for a good pitcher's duel in that last matchup. But yeah, Framber is a better pitcher than Michael Kopech. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He's been better on the road too. 2.21 ERA, 185 batting average against. And Kopech, while he's been good, 6 straight starts here, does walk about a guy, 4.5 guys per 9 innings exactly here. So the FIP, the Sierra, not really up to par in terms of how he's performed recently. And those Astros, yeah, they eat up fastballs. I do agree with you, Josh, that we could be looking at under still, though. I think the Astros all year have been pretty reliable with the unders there because of that bullpen and because their offense hasn't really exploded. So I have no problem with that as a play. But this game, my third most confident for sure. I do like those bets on the Mets against the Yankees earlier tonight. So I think there is some excitement here on Wednesday night.
Thank you for bringing that optimism to us, Nate. I agree. I'm going to be watching some baseball tonight myself as I pack for a trip to Atlanta, where I will be watching the Braves on Friday night as well, by the way, in person. Looking forward to that. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.